On the agenda tonight, we're going to be having a listen to ABBA and comparing their vocal waveforms from a release in 1979 with two of their most recent releases. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, we're going to be using Gimme 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 from 1979 as our baseline, our reference point, because that isn't and wasn't auto-tuned or pitch corrected. We're going to be comparing that with Keep an Eye on Dan and Don't Shut Me Down. So those are the two most recent releases that we're going to be taking a look at the vocal waveforms of. And we're just going to be listening to Agnetha because as soon as more than one voice gets involved, the vocal pitch monitor has problems picking up one voice because there are so many voices going on and different notes. So we're going to jump straight into it, the isolated vocal of Gimme Gimme Gimme. And I'm going to jump into it quite a lot, so hopefully it's a little bit clearer for you guys watching what we're actually looking at, because I can reference vocal phrases just after they've happened, so we're left with the vocal waveforms on screen. But let's jump into the first verse of Gimme Gimme Gimme. So, there's our first vocal phrase, and we can see that we've actually got a tone's worth of vibrato here. First thing to point out about Agnetha's voice is the way that she's got this wide vibrato, but it's so controlled, and how accurate she is naturally. This is something that is going to be a feature of this video. Her vocal is so accurate all the time, even going back, to the 70s, late 70s, this was 1979, but throughout her singing career, she is just so accurate, and a lot of people would say pitch perfect because they sound like notes that are just dead on the whole time. We'll be able to see from the vocal waveforms that we're looking at that they're not exactly on all the time, but have a look at this. We're ascending through the note here on the F4, but you can see these little spells where she's absolutely nailing it on a D4 here, and checking the tuning of the original song, it is tuned to 440 Hertz, so it is standard tuning, and this is what this vocal pitch monitor is picking up. These are the notes to that particular frequency and how everything's being tuned, all of the instruments. So we can see that she is dead on with a lot of her vocal phrases. Obviously, there are going to be points where she's sharp because this is a natural vocal, and then ascending a bit sharp. I'm just going to take it back to have a look at some of the other notes that came in earlier on. I think we started with that group vocal. That's why it wasn't picked up. So let's jump into the continuation of the verse and have a listen to a bit more. And it makes me so depressed to see the blue. And another good example there of how accurate she is for the most part, but again, we're not just getting directly on the lines here like auto-tune looked like in the other videos. It is much more random, and here we've got a descension of the note where she then quickly corrects to get back up to pitch, but then descends with vibrato again. And this wasn't two notes. This wasn't a D4 and then a D flat 4 or C sharp 4 as it's labeled here. It's both the same note. But if I just take that back quickly, you'll be able to listen to it. You won't really notice that she's going flat and then coming up and going flat again because it just sounds good. It's so quick that you can't analyze it really with your ear and your brain that quickly until you see the waveforms to see exactly what was going on with that note. So I'm just going to let this vocal line play before the chorus because it's a really important vocal line for the analysis for tonight's video. Let's have a listen. There's not a soul out there, no one to hear my prayer. And there we have it, and I'm sure you guys all know we've got a lot of vocals about to kick off, so I'm going to stop it there. So, taking that back, if you're looking at this waveform and this line, actually the notes going up into that final G4 are so accurate, and this is not auto-tuned, not pitch corrected. Look at the way Agnetha starts on the E4, goes straight up to the F4, and is slightly sharp of the G4. But try and imagine that this note wasn't sharp, but it was on the line. This would look remarkably like auto-tune. But this was a vocal that's totally unedited pitch-wise. So this slightly sharp, and that's why, but auto-tune would do a similar thing, but putting it right on the line. And there's every chance that in the studio, she is so accurate with her pitch that she might have nailed it on the line and then held it perfectly. So, a lot of people would say, right, so a singer can hit a note perfectly. I mean, the giveaway is the vibrato after, because then she goes sharp with the vibrato. With auto-tune, that would still be perfectly over the line. So that is a bit of a giveaway that it's a naturally produced vocal. But let's imagine that Agnetha, when she sang that line, she was dead on the G4. And her pitch is so accurate, it would have been all over the line. And let's imagine that she vibratoed on the line as well. And then you could argue, so somebody can, if they're good enough, I mean, we are talking top level pitch accuracy here, you could argue that you can get some waveforms that look like auto-tune when they're not auto-tune. And I'm just about to explain why this was so good in the studio booth when Agnetha recorded this, how accurate it was. I'm going to load up the same vocal phrase from the second verse, at the end of the second verse.
No one to hear my prayer.
And there we have it. So now when we're looking at this from the second verse, we can see that we're slightly sharp again, and we are really consistent to the point where we're now going sharp with the vibrato. And anybody that's been in production will know exactly what's happened here. Is that Agnetha hit this note so well, so accurately, and the pitch was so insanely accurately held that they have copied and pasted, and the old version of this, which I'll explain in a second, they've copied and pasted the vocal from the first pre-chorus to the second pre-chorus. The line is a little bit sharp, and then it goes a little bit flat closer to the line, and then sharp again, and then we're going to ascend. Imagine that these are all joined up with ascend with the vibrato. So I get rid of that, and you can see here how we start sharp, and then we descend to the line, and then we ascend again, and then we start going sharp. So even though this is really sensitive, the vocal pitch monitor, and the waveforms can vary depending on how I'm holding my phone in front of the amp, because that's what I'm using here. I'm actually using some reference speakers to get as an accurate a sound as I can for my phone to pick up, because I'm just using this Android app, which is called Vocal Pitch Monitor. So even with how detailed these vocal waveforms are, it's still showing us exactly the same waveforms that we've seen previously. So it's a definite copy and paste job. How they would have done this in the studio is Agnetha, of course, would have sung the second verse, the second pre-chorus, and they would have had 2 takes of it. But the first one was so good that they have copied that tape, they have cut out that piece of tape, and they've literally pasted it, glued it onto the tape that was where the second chorus is about to happen and the second verse happened. So they get scissors, and I mean, they cut it like with a scalpel. They are I was just about to say strategic. They are definitely strategic in the way that they're putting it together, but they are surgical. That's probably a better word as to how to get this tape in exactly the right place, and then not to hear where the new piece of tape is. And it was really an art form, the editing back in the day when you're doing this kind of editing on tape. But it goes to show how perfect this vocal phrase was that it couldn't be repeated twice. And this is why auto-tune is so obvious, because every single vocal phrase throughout the whole song is spot on the line and always perfect, especially with held notes. And we're talking about Agnetha here being one of the top vocalists in the world ever for pitch, and she couldn't hit it exactly the same way twice. But I'm sure she hit it really well the second time, but they just thought, wow, that first time that she sang it was so good. We want that on that second verse. So that's exactly what they did. It's great as well that the vocal waveforms are not only showing us the accuracy of pitch of some singers, but it's showing us the production techniques that they used on the recording. Another thing to mention is that the audio waveforms are identical as well. So it means that not only the voice, but probably the whole section of that song has been copied and pasted. So now we're going to jump to the present day 2021, and we're going to be having a listen to Don't Shut Me Down. And just to mention as well that a lot of you will know that Bjorn and Benny are behind the production, and they've always been behind the production, so they're heavily involved with that side of things. And they will know about pitch correction, auto-tune, and they'll know how to apply it. So I'm going to have a listen to this. We'll have a look at the waveforms and see if we can spot anything in Agnetha's voice that is different to Gimme Gimme Gimme.
A while ago I heard the sound of children's laughter. Now it's quiet, so I guess they left the park. This wooden bench is getting harder by the hour. The sun is going down, it's getting dark.
So let's jump into this. We can see here, very similar to that previous recording, 1979, where Agnetha's right on the note there, which she could do. We've already seen the proof of that. But we do have, I'd say, a lot more notes falling on lines, but not all of them, because here she's gone slightly sharp. I think this is something about her voice, the way that she sings. She tends to just drift a little bit sharp, but that's her expression. It's not her being, off key or out of tune. It's just the way that she sings. But as we take it back, let's have a look. Certainly when we started, we were, again, pretty accurate. I mean, here we're dead on the line, and here we're dead on the line again. This vocal phrase has been allowed to descend, and again, a dead-on note here, and just ascending a little bit through the note, dead on. Something just popped up in my memory there about a word where I thought it stood out a bit more.
This wooden bench is getting harder by the hour.
There it was, harder by the hour. So we'll take this back because it sounds like it's got a little bit of pitch correction on there. This isn't auto-tune, by the way. And if you're not sure of the difference between auto-tune and pitch correction, check out the video that I did last, and you'll be able to see there me explaining it and showing you examples in Logic Pro 10, which is a digital audio workstation, what you use for production and recording, bands, instruments. So you'll be able to look on there for the differences. But this is, I think, a case of pitch correction. So they're not using auto-tune, but just have a listen to how the tone, and I've got reference speakers here, so it's a little bit more exaggerated. You can really hear the difference in frequencies, the difference in sound between the vocal, and as soon as the words come in that sound a little bit more pitch corrected.
This wooden bench is getting harder by the hour.
It's just that harder by the hour. Certainly just the word harder, there's a definite change in there.
This wooden bench is getting harder by the hour.
And you can see here that that harder has been snapped straight on to that line. And even, I think this whole vocal phrase has been a little bit more heavily pitch corrected than the rest of the vocal that we've heard so far.
The sun is going down, it's getting dark.
But let me just take that back, because I was going to say what I like about the production that they've done here, Bjorn and Benny, is that they've allowed most of it to go through, like slightly flat here, going sharp. And they will know that when you've got a singer like this, you don't mess with their voice too much. I'd say that Agnetha is 96% accurate naturally, as we've heard in 1979. And the pitch correction is making her now 98% accurate. So it's an extra 2% that they've just added into the mix. But a lot of people would argue she doesn't need it in the first place, because the difference between 96% and 98%, you're not really going to notice it when you're talking about a vocalist that is this accurate pitch-wise. The only time you can start to see the pitch correction is with the waveforms, and you only get to hear it on these very small sections. Like I said, just that vocal phrase where you can hear the difference in the vocal quality and the tone of the vocal because something's happened to it. It's been put through something. But let's continue.
As I watch the windows on the second floor.
Again, here, good example of being flat, but it's allowed to go through.
I believe it would be fair to say.
Ah, there you go. That first phrase, I just happened to pick that out. But again, your ear just twitches a little bit. As a producer, you can hear the difference now in Agnetha's voice. It's lost a little bit of that natural tone.
I believe it would be fair to say.
But even still, they're not being really strict with it, but it's just a little bit too snapped to the note.
You look bewildered.
Yeah, definitely. This is 100% being snapped to lines now.
And you wonder why I'm here today.
And they've allowed it to go flat at the end. So this is... It depends how you want to analyse this. This is either used artistically, which might be the point. They want this to sound a little bit more mechanical than the other vocal lines. It could also be Bjorn and Benny in the recording studio knowing about auto-tune, knowing about pitch correction, intentionally doing half and half. Because they know people aren't going to be able to hear the difference, but people like me that are going to analyse it will be able to see that they've intentionally done it for half of it and then not done for the second half. And they're doing this pretty regularly. So I don't know whether this is some kind of really subtle, low-level protest against auto-tune and pitch correction. It might be the fact that they're doing it so obviously and then letting the natural voice come out. It could be. Let's have a little listen and then we'll jump into the next one.
And so you told I would. When I left, I felt I'd had enough.
And here we are now definitely pitch corrected to the point of, you would say that these are like auto-tune. It is so snapped to the note. So let's do it again.
When I left, I felt I'd had enough.
And you can hear it on the vocal as well.
But in the shape and form of mine.
And then they allow, again, they're following the same formula of then allowing it to go flat to where Agnetha actually performed the vocal. So we're going to jump into Keep an Eye on Damn, and I actually really like this song. It's a little bit more edgy. The lyrical content of the song and the way that it's minor based, and we get some melody lines in there that are natural minor. By the way, we're starting with a synthesizer sound. It might have even been a vocoder. So it means that the pitch software has actually picked this up as a voice, because it does sound like a voice, but you'll be able to see what playing a keyboard looks like when it's hitting pitches and this thinks it's a voice. And a lot of people will say, well, that looks like auto-tune, because that's exactly what auto-tune is. It's making the human voice into a keyboard. And this is playing the same. This is playing a keyboard. You'll see how we just end on the line all the times. And that's why when you see this and you're listening to a vocal, you know it's auto-tuned.
I know that this shouldn't be a traumatic event, but it is.
Again, super accurate start to the verse. Look how we're over the lines, but allowed to descend a little bit here, straight over the lines, wide vibrato as we ended. And this is, I mean, so accurate, but because of the singer we're talking about, you can't really say that it is definitely pitch corrected and auto-tuned, but it might be because it's such an important part of the song to hit these notes dead on because of the vocal melody we've got going on. Let's listen to a bit more.
And I feel so bad.
Dead on lines here.
My little boy looks so happy, he throws me his money kiss. And he laughs. He's dead.
Again, pretty much dead on there.
And I loved him too.
Interesting that now we've got more than one voice and the software's still picking it up. So we can see here that we're dead on the line and pretty much we're a little bit flat here and pretty much dead on the line. So again, I think here a case of pitch correction.
Maybe I still do, but it's over. Keep an eye on them. Promise me you can.
Just to throw in there that because of the accuracy we've got going on here throughout these pre-choruses, I mean, we are really accurate on each of these lines. And going back to the 1979 example where I showed you that when Agnetha was so close to the line that they've copied and pasted it rather than being able to do it twice in a row because it was like a standalone vocal that they've used again, this is the same kind of thing. So it is a perfect take that was so perfect they've copied and pasted it, but you know, 3 in a row. So you can tell that something's been pitch corrected just to make it dead on these lines. And again, 440 hertz here, equal temperament. So that's how they're tuning their instruments and the song. The other thing is that we know that Björn and Benny are part of the production. They do it all. So they, I'm sure if they were interviewed and if I asked them, for example, did you use pitch correction on your album? They would say yes, and the reason that they used it. And if I asked them, did you use autotune? They would either say yes or no, but for artistic reasons. And this is the difference, that when you're working with singers of this quality, they don't need these extra things that get them to a particular pitch because they're already at that pitch. They're 96% there, and that extra 2% they might have found just sat it better in the mix. Another potential reason and side of the argument is that nowadays everything has this effect, pitch correction or auto-tune, on it vocally. So if you want to sound like other songs that are being released at this time and sound modern and part of this generation, you would need to apply this effect because that would sit it in the mix with other songs that are being released at the time, so it would bring it into 2021. I know that a lot of people would argue that a lot of the music in 2021 doesn't sound the same as it used to and sounds too mechanical because everything's going through auto-tune and pitch correction. So I'm sure a lot of hardcore ABBA fans would have rather heard an album that was just old school of being allowed to sing a song the whole way through without any pitch correction, but it might have been a production choice for the sound of the overall mix to get it to sound modern and therefore apply these effects and these production techniques. My own opinion as a musician and someone that's produced quite a lot as well, I fall onto the side of this having been used to make it sound modern rather than to try and hide pitch inaccuracies, because we know from the previous releases and, let's face it, from hearing ABBA sing live, that they have not got a problem hitting pitches. As always, keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comments section below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!